if you think that like this world that we currently live in isn't one of the darker timelines, well then everything works here. Then this is fine. In fact, we can make it better, in your opinion, by
No.
loosening
Yeah, deregulate. Why
regulations
not?
and deregulate, to do more of that, and things will be even better. Yeah. So
Look,
it's just I'm focused.
How dare you accuse me
on,
of having values that think that like corporations fucking over people is a positive thing? Like you're putting that on me. Don't put that on me. Like I think what is happening is corporations
Yeah.
are capturing the state so that they can abuse regulations in the government to fuck over workers more. And I want freedom and happy and healthy workers in a community of people that voluntarily have better options and better lives. For 35,000 channel points, I will put on gray sweatpants for you.
What? Do we do dick jokes a lot on this? Is that we referring to us? We don't do a lot of dick jokes. I don't think so.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're a dick and a joke. I just kind of put the two together.
There we go. Given is that post-pandemic demand has fallen, so tough decisions must be made. But at the same time, all of these tech firms have massive cash reserves after a year of record-breaking profits. What do you think is the cause of the layoffs? Do you think they are a reasonable reaction to shifting economic demands? Are these layoffs due to the unreasonable demands of shareholders? Should we restructure our economic system so that it has different incentives to encourage less destructive behavior? So the numbers are huge. The numbers are huge in terms of people who've just been laid off. Like in the past 2 weeks, it's God, it must be like 40,000 at least 40,000 who've lost their jobs. It's devastating. And these companies again are coming off of record-breaking profits. But now maybe we'll get into it on the panel. But companies have basically just one excuse as to why that's happening. I'm going to ask if these people actually believe any of that, and how can we address it, that kind of stuff. All right, we'll start with our friend Lactoid.
The cause of the layoffs was a market bubble. The fact these people were hired in the first place and offered such insane paychecks was because people were expecting to satisfy a market demand from them. And as it happens, the market demand has changed. People's interest in NFTs, cryptocurrencies, and Amazon purchases dropped since the pandemic's been loosening, which is probably pretty foreseeable, in my opinion. And although losing a job sucks, the fact our system so effectively shifts production to demand is one of the greatest empirical benefits of a free market. We don't want a bunch of people who are highly paid software engineers if there is no appetite for it from the people. Doing so would be a waste that is almost on par with the waste created by public sector unions.
Thank you for that, buddy. I'm glad you got that in. Let's go to our other friend Scott.
So, apropos of the quote that I read from Murray Rothbard in the first opening statement, I would say the exact same thing, right? That over time, marginal wages increase. And so what you had during the pandemic is you had the need for a lot of code building, the need for a lot of employees. And as that has dropped off and technology has increased the marginal value of labor with additional algorithms that have been written, they don't need these employees, right? Like it was only a couple months ago that Twitter was firing like 90% of its staff and everyone was like, oh my God, the sky's falling. Twitter's going to collapse, going to have all these huge problems. They had a couple of bugs and now they're doing great. Right. But the money's not good enough because advertisers pulled out because, ESG, therefore firing the employees was bad. Right. Just circular fucking logic of dumbassery. The real thing here is that this is good. We should celebrate large tech companies firing a ton of people because what it means is they no longer need this amount of employees to do the same job. This is creative destruction within the own workplace. And it's amazing. Right? Remember when journalists told coal miners to learn to code, right? And then The journalists themselves got fired, and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Google considered it hate speech to tell journalists to learn to code, and you were kicked off of platforms or potentially got community guideline strikes because you told journalists to learn to code. Well, the cool thing is that all these people that were fired already know how to code, right? So what are they going to do? They're going to go out into the market knowing how to code, and the beauty of creative destruction is the next Uber is going to exist here soon. The next DoorDash is going to exist. The next labor-saving device that increases GDP and increases the value of labor and increases wages across the world is going to be made because thousands of employees with specific technical knowledge are now available in the workforce, and this is something we should celebrate. But of course, we're supposed to like feel bad for the tech workers that were making TikToks about their Michelin star salad bar at their work losing their fucking job, making six figures. You son of a bitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm supposed to feel bad about these people. I don't feel bad about these people. They'll have new jobs soon, and it's going to be great and amazing, and I celebrate the invention of labor-saving devices like better algorithms and more competition in the market because of the employees.
They should learn to mine coal. That's what they should do.
Learn to weld. Learn to weld. Learn a trade, you useless Google employee.
Lactoid looks like a nice person, but like deep down, it's not. Let's go to our friend Rezi.
I feel bad for the audience for being subjected to that, because I had a witty thing that I was going to go ahead and make a joke about, but you guys now lose that. Yeah, people losing their jobs kind of sucks for those people, right? Yeah, maybe the companies don't need them, okay? Maybe that's like viable and valuable is a thing to say. However, I am going to conspiracy this and just say that I think that the firing of these tech workers was to show every worker that's out there specifically what they're worth, which is nothing. That they, like Wick, are worms, and that they should be treated as such. This is my conspiracy, that the whole reason these people were laid off were to tell people at McDonald's to shut the fuck up, make your fucking burgers, and be happy. We reduced the minimum wage down to $3 an hour. The kids play Minecraft, and they yearn for the mines. Fuck it. Let's go.
Okay.
Like I'm half serious. I actually do think that it's a conspiracy, but like, yeah, I'm gonna make jokes too. Sorry.
All right. Rez is great. That's why we have him here. All right, let's go to Aiko, who is a teacher, and he would know better than everyone else here how much they indeed yearn for the mines.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking. Yeah, but we're not talking about teachers here. We're talking about. I'm not a teacher, by the way. I'm a coach. But
you used to be a teacher.
Well, I've worked in the class. You know, I have taught classes. That's true. But I don't anymore. I coach. At least that's the way I look at it. So if you, but if you look at this, we're talking specifically about tech workers. I've worked in the tech industry. I did that before I started doing what I do now. I have a lot of friends who are still in the tech industry. I've got some friends who are at Microsoft specifically, and I can tell. So I absolutely feel for people like when their jobs are lost or whatever. And like for instance, when Twitter started firing all of their employees, like the glee with which people like were responding to the fact that all these people were losing their jobs, I thought was like disgusting. Of course, you shouldn't be celebrating like, people losing their jobs or losing their livelihoods or anything like that. However, that being said, you picked two topics that are going to make me side with the right, Prime, and I don't know how I feel about that. But the fact is, you can't expect a company to maintain employees for the sake of giving them jobs. Like, it's not a jobs program. It's not sustainable to do that. It's certainly not good for the market to do that. It's not good for our international sort of competitiveness to do that. I do think that it's different when it comes to any industry that competes on an international basis than it is on, for instance, in other types of jobs. Like if this were about McDonald's, if you're, if you overpay or have too many employees in that industry, you're not risking international competitiveness. If McDonald's shuts down, then there's going to be a Burger King there. Like that's where all of the sort of the benefit these bad business practices sort of stay local. It's impossible to outsource a McDonald's job to other countries because no one's going to go to another country just to go get a fast food meal. They're going to get their meals locally no matter what. So it's different when you're competing internationally than when you are providing a local service.
Let's go off where I go. I see. I won't forget. Let's go to our friend Johnny. Johnny won't let me down. Right, Johnny? Right?
We'll see. I can't read your mind, Prime, but I will say that I think it should have been expected. I think it should have been put up front that a lot of these jobs would be temporary. Hey, baby. Who just said that?
I did. I said goodnight to my wife.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I think it should have been put up more up front that these jobs would have been more temporary. And ironically, there's sort of a synthesis of topics here because, what does have a pretty good sense of these jobs will be temporary and a little bit of union protection as well is welding. So I think that unironically, if you want job security, learn to weld. But also, I think that there should
everyone's
be more
talking
of an
points.
expectation and more of a process put up front by these companies that, hey, a lot of these jobs, even in the tech industry, we're building a thing and then the thing will just need maintenance. A lot of the building will be temporary jobs. I think that's a decent solution so that people can be a little more upfront about how their finances will look in the future.
So much. Okay. And finally, our friend counterpoints.
No, so there's that's actually really cool because I was going to meme into it as well, where the whole reason why these people got fired was because their TikToks where they were getting like Michelin salads and all that kind of crap. And, they Google was doing their weird progressive, like, we're going to have people live here at work in our super city that's a golf cart away from their job. So they basically spend it's basically like living on a campus that then also your work is right next door. Yeah, pretty much. But then that's kind of the problem. We're seeing the problem with this, which is when you sink all of your investment into a single thing and your social life, your professional life, your benefits, your long-term well-being, your ego are all wrapped up into one thing, and that one thing is yanked away from you, then it kind of destroys you a little bit. So, but I do love the creative destruction of capitalism. I do think that these people will move on to do bigger and better things. And there's a whole bunch of teaching jobs that are available for people who need to come teach young folks. So there's plenty of opportunity out there. It might not be $200,000 a year, but you'll be making 40 or 50 and you'll get retirement. So go ahead and become a fucking teacher. And then the thing that, basically Johnny said that I think is so insightful is the fact that we do need realistic expectations about the digital frontier. It's been expanding and expanding and exploding and exploding, and that's awesome. And I'm so happy that the world is developing as quickly as it has over the past 20 or 30 years. But it should be the expectation that if you were a drywaller, your trade, craft, and income is tied to the construction industry. So your expectation is you're going to get a certain job, you're going to do the job, you're going to get paid well, and then you're going to have to wait for the next job. And I think a lot of young professionals didn't think about that, and a lot of older professionals probably didn't think about that anyways, because there were always jobs in tech because of how big it's expanding. So if the marketplace is shifting, that's interesting. I think it's worth tracking, and I think it's worth a more mature response from the American workforce. And I'll stop talking.
Okay, so I'll say something because Johnny, you never have to read my mind. I stand with labor. So fuck these capitalists. And I think that so the reason why that was given, and the article that I provided to these individuals, they had a great breakdown. It showed it lined up all these statements from the companies, and you realize they're all the same, right? They're all the exact same thing. And they say that, it's because there was a pandemic, and our great business minds, right? The great capitalist brains, the meritocracy brains that run these things, they all thought, we had increase in digital spending, and that'll be forever. And when it turned out to not be the case, because that's obviously not going to be the case, because things were going to open up, they're shocked Like, well, it turns out we couldn't predict it. We couldn't think of it. It surprised us, and so we have to fire all these people. So I think that's bullshit. I actually do think they're smarter than that, right? Like I don't give capitalists much, but I think they're smarter than that. And I think it's demand of the shareholders. I think it's the idea of the fact that there isn't infinite growth, because it's all what shareholders care about. It's the fact, it's growth, right? How much are you going to grow? But there's a limit as to how much you can do that. It's just because there's just a limit to wealth. You just can't have it all. So I think you can't have it all. I don't, whatever. I'll explain it to you slowly later on. But like, so I think that it has a lot to do with the incentives, especially within the tech industry currently. And I'd love to explain it with the rest of you guys. So go ahead.
Yeah, let me go. So first of all, there is no limit to wealth, right? This is a Gnostic Marxist religious belief. This idea, like you're presupposing this idea of like a fixed amount of wealth, and that the bourgeois elite are like hoarding wealth so that the rest of us are not being able to get our fair share piece of the pie. When the fact of the matter is that wealth is generated all the time and new wealth occurs. And that's the wonderful thing about these people going out into the market, is that they will create new wealth.
Okay.
Right?
I don't believe that wealth is finite.
Okay, well then why did you say that you did?
I'm saying like there's only so much that within a sector, right, that you can that an individual company can simply like grow, like in terms of like their wealth increasing. There's only so much. So not that there is a finite amount of wealth, but there's a finite amount of growth.
There's not a finite amount of growth, but there's only so much growth that occurs in reality. Right, like obviously a company like will only grow a certain percentage
in a set time.
It's not, but it's okay. I'll move on to dumber conversations.
Fabian lives in the world of theory,
right, like,
so I understand the distinction he's making.
Like, but the
problem,
I
guess, yeah, but we live in reality. But go ahead, sorry.
But like, I don't understand. Like, why would you stand with these workers? Like, to what value? Like, what value are they giving? Like, why are we forcing companies to maintain workers that are not necessary?
They were the same value that they provided previously. I don't.
But they're not.
I don't. So there are tons of reasons why people are let go. And I'm saying that I don't necessarily believe the reasons why they are stating, right? So they're stating it's because of the shift in the market, right? But I don't believe that. I don't believe
they're doing it to send a message that you are worthless.
No.
That you are a worm. You are the shit underneath their shoe, and you will be wiped as soon as they don't need you for traction. That is the message they're sending. Okay, they are making a political, authoritative statement.
PrimeCayes, are you aware of the marginal revolution in economics? Like, do you understand what marginal utility is? Okay, so like marginal utility at its base, right? Like, and even Aristotle recognized this, right? Is like if I go to the grocery store and I want to buy a loaf of bread, right? And the loaf of bread is $2.50, right? The second loaf of bread isn't really worth $2.50 to you, right? Because you only need one loaf of bread. But if the bread is like on sale for $4, right? Then each bread becomes $2, and so you might buy a second loaf of bread and like throw it in your freezer. So that's like marginal utility from like a consumer perspective. Marginal revolution is understanding the value of labor and how that occurred from a worker's perspective, right? So if I'm in a McDonald's employee, for example, right, and I hire my very first janitor. Well, my very first janitor might be worth $20 an hour, because what I can do is I can pay them to clean the bathrooms, right? And they've done, research to find that's super valuable to our product because we get more people to stay in our McDonald's, etc. But if I hire a second janitor, well, both janitors aren't needed to clean the bathroom. But the second janitor might clean, let's say, might take out the trash or like mop the floors. And this has a value, but it's not as valuable as cleaning the bathroom. The third janitor might scrape gum off of the bottom of the tables.
We got it. We got it.
Right.
We got it.
So what this
and the fourth janitor is hired to be fired to send a message.
Right. You got it, Reservoir. Right. So So the more employees that you have, the less valuable their labor is, right? Each individual person's labor becomes devalued by having more employees based upon the jobs that are available, right? So when you actually fire employees, what you are doing is you are increasing the value of labor that you're getting from each individual worker. And this is part of the article that you were reading where investors are looking at revenue per capita, and they're looking at how many employees you have versus how much revenue you're bringing in. And so even if you get rid of like some good, because the article is like taking this stupid fucking economic take where it's like, well, study, like, you know, it's actually reducing value. And no, like if you get rid of any employees, if they're able to do the functions of the job, then the value increases, even if they're doing less valuable jobs, because now your laborers are prioritizing more high value problems, issues, problem solution, etc.
Are they? Are they doing that?
I mean, if they're doing their jobs, I mean, like obviously some people suck at their jobs, or some company management isn't effectively done, right? Like this is in a perfect world, right? I mean, like we don't have, you know, a evenly rotating economy, but I mean,
okay, fair enough.
But yeah, like that tends to be the incentive in the behavior.
Sure. Okay. I think. Well, all right then. Not perfect economy. All right. But I don't believe. Okay. So on the subject of Meta, right? Meta might be a bit of an exception because
they fucking crashed.
Yeah.
Up,
Well, that and Zuckerberg with his fucking metaverse nonsense, that was a complete disaster. And so I'm more
buy
inclined
it with Meta, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that was but not even for their reason, because it's not this. Well, actually, never mind. I think I may have seen a longer statement than what was in that article, and it might have actually included that. So, all right, I'll put Meta aside. But
and Twitter.
And
Twitter was definitely to send a message. Elon Musk has done that at other companies where he fires people to send messages.
He didn't have a choice. He put that company deeply in debt. He couldn't afford to hire them anymore, and he just had to let go as many people as he could.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. You know,
also,
that's all I'm gonna say.
Also, I do think there was sort of a flood of coders, like new coders available on the market, and I've been in these meetings before. This is before back when I was in the corporate world, and in those meetings, often I would hear, "Hey, we need to decrease turnover and have more employee retention." The conversations were about how we could increase turnover so that we can get rid of the lowest performing employees and have an excuse for doing so because we have a high turnover rate, and then replace them with higher performing people who are on the market. And when there are a whole bunch of there's a flood of new coders on the market who are great and available, you might want to flush a bunch of your employees, and then a few months later, go hire those Twitter people.
Yep. I mean,
I believe it. I've been a part of a corporate
decision.
turnover like that, and it was fucking awful.
I think there is I'm trying to find the breakdown before, because I'd seen it somewhere. I just don't have it on hand. But this idea that it was just like coders are let go. Now, they were cutting across the board. Microsoft.
Yeah, no, they're not getting rid of coders. They're getting rid of HR employees and fucking all kinds of useless positions too. But they're probably getting rid of everybody.
Okay, so let's acknowledge that it's not simply that, we have a glut of coders and we don't have anything to do with for coders, and so we are that we're just getting rid of those positions, right? Some sort of market corrections purely based on that. That's definitely not the case. It seems to me that that they had been making incredible profits previously, that there was a spike in growth, and then growth slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cut for that. Not that they aren't, and remember, and understand, when I say growth, this is to the audience, not to Scott, you guys understand this, but like when I say growth, it's not simply profits, right? It's like the increase in amount of profits you'll get from this quarter to the next quarter. Not that they aren't making profits. They are making profits. They're making billions. These people aren't, this isn't poverty that's happening. Oh, no, we don't make these cuts to the company. Then how are we going to survive next quarter? How a tough decision needs to be made. No, they're still making profits, billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in profits. These individual companies, but still they've made this decision. So I don't believe them. I don't believe their excuses here. And I don't believe that these employees didn't have value to the company. They didn't have value to the shareholders.
Can I
Hold
ask
on,
you a question?
Prime.
Can I ask you a
think
question?
One
I
second,
think
hold
you're-
on. Let's go to.
I'll be
I
real
think you're
quick.
saying, who do you want, Prime?
I want Heiko.
Okay,
Okay, I'll ask you a quick question. All right.
All right, so I think the analysis that you're giving is doesn't really jibe well with what a corporation does, unless what you're saying is that they're willing to act against their own best interests. Like if you're saying that these employees like are necessary for the continued success of the company, and that they're not getting rid of them because the company needs it or for efficiency reasons or anything else, then what you're saying is that they really are acting against their own best interests. That would be the only way in which I could accept your analysis.
What are their best interests? Like we have to define
Profit.
that. And is it profit? Oh well, they got plenty of profit. Oh, then the job's done. They've got plenty of profit. Or
No,
is
no.
it?
So here's my question.
or
Maybe
is it-
because I think
or the-
Alcal Rich and I are dancing around like the same thing. Like, do you think a company has to justify firing people that it doesn't want?
Does a company have to justify? No, I never said that they did. But
Right. So
Yeah,
then
they?
where's the issue, right? Like they don't want these employees. They're moving on a business strategy of like cutting the chaff, right? And so like I don't understand the issue unless you
I'm
feel
saying-
that a company needs to justify firing a bunch of people because there's something inherently wrong with that.
is that I think the problem is that we see this destructive behavior. I don't think it's positive destruction, but we see this destructive behavior, and it's because of the reason is done because of poor reasoning. It's done because we have to serve the interests of the shareholders and not necessarily the interests of the company itself. It's not that, and again, I don't want to make a blanket statement across all these companies, like I just said, like with Metaverse, like or Meta, like that might be a different situation.
Microsoft lost a bunch of money too, and like Alphabet is bleeding money in YouTube. Like a lot of these companies have been.
We'll have
the
to-
interest of the company is the interest of the shareholders.
No, it's
Yeah.
absolutely not. That is
Legally-
absolutely not.
legally,
that
it
I
has
do
to
not
be.
accept.
It's against
Not
the
at
law.
all.
If it's against
Not-
the law,
no,
it's
it's
not.
No, profit
No.
incentive and
Oh,
delivery to
sorry.
shareholders is,
Oh,
but
okay, so
not
maybe-
the interests of the company necessarily.
Yeah. So maybe we're defining that differerly. Sorry, let me elect to it. What I'm trying to
Do
say
you believe
is
the
that
company has a
interest
soul?
of-
Like,
No, why are you saying these things? I don't what. Okay, ignoring that. Lactoid. I say that the interests of the shareholders are not necessarily the interests of the company, the organization is itself. I understand what you're saying in that legally these things like the company has to serve the interests of the shareholders. I don't think those two things are actually tied. I think bearing the interest of the shareholders is a lot of short-term growth. And so that drives their decision making rather than long-term moves that could help us.
It's also long-term growth, right? Because I mean, the reality is that a lot of like the shareholders for these major corporations, even the ones that are publicly traded, but especially the ones that are privately traded, are like long-term shareholders that have an interest in having line go up. And if shareholders start like getting the impression that this company's only obsessed with short-term growth, you're going to see an incredibly volatile share price, and you're going to like not be acting in the best interest of the shareholders. One of the purposes of a company is to convince shareholders, look, I'm trying to make you money, and I'm trying to make you money going forward. So if you decide to hold on to a stock, you can keep getting dividends. And if you want to sell, you're going to find a willing buyer because we're going to keep on growing and we're going to keep on being a good company. A company that doesn't act in its shareholders' interest at all times is
it's illegal.
violating its fiduciary
fiduciary
No.
responsibility.
Again,
to
I get the fiduciary responsibility. I'm
pensioners.
saying that fiduciary responsibility is problematic in and of itself, and that it's not the best interest of the company. We'll get into that in a second.
Okay.
I think other people want to jump in, but I definitely want to tackle this because I think it's the very heart of the issue. The very heart of the issue.
I can
Go ahead.
articulate the hippie version of it. So basically what's going on is that like profits over people is okay to a certain extent, but there's also this thing where it can just be like, let's cut to cut, or let's send a message. You know, it's not about the money. It's about the message. So like, you know, that was my best Joker impression. So anyways, the point being that like yeah, no, we can. So wait, what are we not doing?
I've got face paint, dude. If we want to do a Joker mode thing, I am so down right now.
I don't know if this is like a meme or not, but like they're not cutting these jobs to send a message.
Right?
They are absolutely cutting these jobs to send a message, dude. Like, what are you talking about?
It was revealed to me in a dream.
If you make the workers accept lower pay, that increases your profits. If you can do that through threats, you absolutely have a fiduciary responsibility to threaten the worker.
That's not true. If you no, like, yeah, the turnover has a price, right?
Incredible price.
And the thing is that turnover has a price usually of your most valuable employees, right? Because these are the people that have the most opportunities to go to your competitors, right? So if you start trying to force lower wages on people that are lower than what the market sets as their value to, like, quote unquote, send a message, what you're going to do is fuck up your company. Right.
And all of these companies that are up there that are interlinked, Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, they can work together to do these things to keep wages low. Right.
No,
and it doesn't even have to, it doesn't look like, work. Yeah. Okay, it doesn't work. Well, then it does work, right?
No, it doesn't.
It absolutely works.
Historically, we know that cartels are not effective. Right. In the short term, cartels can engage in price fixing. Right. OPEC Plus is probably the best example of this. And the reason it works in the short term for OPEC Plus is because we have a lot of other factors that don't exist in normal markets. Number one, the state has like strategic petroleum reserves. Right. And so there's a battle against the SPR. And the other reason is because it's an incredibly elastic good. People, you know, it's much like healthcare. Like people like in an emergency situation, right? Like people need oil. Like you can't just like immediately switch to nuclear energy because it takes like 4 years to fucking build a facility.
Yeah.
Now, even in that response, number one, when you form a cartel, which is even riskier than a monopoly, right? When you form a cartel, there's always the risk that someone breaks from the cartel, and it almost always happens. That's the number one thing. The number two thing is that when you engage in price fixing, this requires you to take a net loss, right? So you artificially lower the price of goods, right? And the hope is that you'll basically price out smaller competitors out of the market because you've lowered the price of goods. But the issue with that is that you take a cost that you eventually have to recoup at some point in time, which means you need to artificially raise the price of goods at a later date once you've pushed out the competitors. But the problem with that is that you create a market void where other individuals are more likely to invest in competition because now they can make a larger profit undercutting your artificially raised price.
Yeah, okay,
cartels just don't work.
You're talking about price fixing, but the only price that's going to be fixed here is the worker accepting a lower wage because he feels threatened.
Yeah, the labor market applies to the same.
But the labor market in America is a bunch of it's worms. It's people that are just going ahead, crawling through the dirt, eating whatever shit they can fucking find, and getting along with it.
I don't understand.
That's flowery language, but it doesn't deal with the economics of the argument.
It does deal with the economics that Americans are.
Shut up. Okay, multiple things. One, we're in another hype train, which is really kind. Thanks, guys, for helping us out. We're level 1 hype train. Or actually, no, sorry, excuse me. The hype train is closed. If we need one more person to gift, we can get ourselves an actual hype train. Sorry, I missed that. Thank you, Stink, for the gift sub, and Eucharist for resubbing. Hey, Eucharist is a great one. All right. So
I miss Eucharist. Bring him back.
Eucharist is amazing. 300 bits from Neridius. Now we're in a hype train, level 1 hype train. Thank you for the kindness. Substitute channel, give bits, give subs. Use Amazon Prime Gaming on the community.
He always makes me feel bad because he gets multiple hype trains in a night. I'm just like,
you'll get after viewing and all the good stuff. Okay?
He talks about it for so goddamn long.
Give sub. Help us get to level 2. We're almost there.
I feel poor.
But
well, 60 subs over the weekend.
We already know that the tech companies have engaged in wage fixing. So that's the thing that's happened, right? In fact, like there was a settlement for exactly that. It was Google, Intuit, Intel. It looks like Apple, Adobe, Pixar for whatever fucking reason. Lucasfilm was also. I don't know why those two were there.
Because Pixar is Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh well, Pixar. I guess Pixar and Lucas, whatever. But anyway, there was a massive wage fixing scandal that they did engage in, and they got caught for that. So that's the thing that they absolutely fucking do engage in. Um, uh, I see what you're saying, Rez. You are trying to send a message to the workers that you can and will be gotten rid of because times are tough. What are we going to do? We got to tighten up. And so like if people aren't performing, well, you got to go. But even then, it doesn't have to.
It's the
have to do with your
Protestant work
performance.
ethic. It's the Protestant work ethic
Nice.
that has been promoted over and over, that has just driven away the souls out of human beings. We've become a satanic society, and it cannot stand. I had no idea they were price fixing, but thank you for steel manning my arguments with some sort of like
the existence
posting.
The existence of price fixing doesn't change the economic principles that I argued for. What I said is that they don't work. It doesn't mean that companies aren't stupid and don't try it, right? Like that's a very different argument. You started with no, so I just wanted to be clear, right? Like, you were like, no, they are doing this, and I was like, I'm just saying that it doesn't matter if they're doing it or not doing it. It doesn't change the economic argument.
Okay, fair enough. We're at 97% of level 1 hype train. Help us get to level 2. We're almost there. 3% left. Someone sub to the channel so that we can make it to level 2 hype train. Save the hype train.
I want to talk about Blizzard because it seems like we're like I want to give an example of like why this like what this problem is, right? Sure. And so Blizzard, I think, is a great example, especially when looking at World of Warcraft, right? And so what you can see is that a company that was really dedicated, a smaller indie company when Warcraft 2 came out, right? And then Warcraft 3, they blew up, right? They eventually got acquired by Activision. First, they were, they were just publishers. Then they kind of owned them as Activision Blizzard. Now it's owned by Microsoft, right? And that merger is going through. I don't fucking know how Bobby Kotick is still CEO, but it's because dumbasses still play this fucking game despite him being a rape apologist that threatens his employees. I refuse to give Blizzard any goddamn money. But
right now, you can look at, see what I'm saying?
Shout out you can look at.
I still play StarCraft. I don't know if that makes me a bad person, but
it does.
Well, you don't pay a monthly subscription to StarCraft, right?
I don't.
Right? You've already owned the game. Right? You can't go back and do it.
There's a whole
it's the soul of the narrative. Your soul is darkened and ruined.
You already own the game and you're taking up server resources. So you're actually actively harming
I'm owning
yeah,
them.
Right. So anyways, what you could see, right, if you follow a lot of World of Warcraft, right, is you see, 2004, the original game comes out. Burning Crusade is amazing. Wrath of the Lich King is considered the peak. And then you see a constant decline that kind of went up a little bit with Legion and is kind of happening again, right? But one of the other things you can see is working conditions got poorer and poorer at Blizzard. Employees were known during the years where it was really bad, where they were living together in like 6-7 people in an apartment because they were paid so poorly. And there was a joke when people would leave that they would constantly say, like, have a great time at Riot, because there was a pipeline from getting experience that people did value at Blizzard, right? And then leaving because the company would not pay people enough money to stay, and their highest valued people would eventually leave and go to Riot Games and other game companies. The reason that this companies stopped publishing how many people were playing their game and ran scared and made way, way less money was because of cutting employee benefits, not treating their employees properly, having toxic work environments. This has a cost that is then brought into the market. And so if this is a bad move...
advocate for better working conditions and wages to harmonize the relationships between labor and the corporations. That way, none of this had to happen.
They can just leave. They can move.
I can't think of a way to do that.
And they did.
We're
14-year-old programmers. 14-year-olds can program in Florida.
We are at level 2 hype train, 50% done, 85% left. Help us get to a level 3 hype train. Keep it going, everyone who's been helping out. Much appreciated to every single one of you. Sub to the channel, give bits or give subs to keep us up and running. If you like this content, like what we're doing, then be so kind, help us out. So we get to a level 3 hype train. We're moving along quite nicely. All right. I don't remember if I don't remember if the story is EA or Blizzard because they both operate, or Activision, excuse me, because they both operate in the same way. But there was stories about like how the employees couldn't afford lunch at the cafeteria. They literally couldn't afford
Probably
it.
Blizzard.
Probably Blizzard. I would get that.
Wait, what do you mean they couldn't? What do you mean they couldn't afford it?
They couldn't
Like,
afford
so
it.
these people were living in Anaheim, California, on salaries of like $55,000 a year,
Damn.
Yeah.
Why
which
did
is
they-
which is
why did
like
they take
way
that
below
job?
poverty, because
Fortune.
Blizzard at the
California,
time
man.
was still skating off of having a stellar reputation for creativity, and so people would put in 2 or 3 years of hell in Blizzard and then leave Blizzard. They had a high turnover rate, and so what ended up happening is their games started sucking and they couldn't maintain that reputation. I mean, nothing was worse than Warcraft 3 Reforged. It was so fucking bad that people were literally making swastika games, right? With people saying escape, called Gas the Jews, and other ones where people were killing black people that were invading the neighborhood, and it had the N-word in it, because the contracts in Reforged were so fucking bad that it actually made it Blizzard's intellectual property. And so they made the worst games possible so that Blizzard owned IP called Gas the Jews and like keep our neighborhoods clean and stuff. Like it was so, the company is so fucking trash because of that short-term thinking.
Sure. Yes. And that short-term thinking, that's the thing I want to discuss. So going back to what our friend Lectwood brought up, talking about how the shareholders, their interests are aligned with the company interests. Again, I don't actually believe that. I think it breeds a lot of short-term thinking. I think that the products end up suffering because of this. I think that it's a possibility. Of course, there are shareholders who think long term. Well, this is without a doubt. Like, they're not all like a fucking monolith, clearly, right? But what their bonuses are based off of, like in terms of like the C-suite, all that is based on more short-term thinking, more short-term profit boosting. That leads to decision making that cuts costs wherever possible, right? And oftentimes that's your human resources. That is the heart of your company.
When you're done, I want to tell a story.
Okay, please, yeah. And you end up with a worst product. You end up with worse services. So I don't think these things are in line. I think it's a line for the C-suite. I think it's a line for shareholders. I think, yes, their salaries are going up. If growth keeps going up, their bonuses keep going up. So that works out, but not for everyone else, and not for their clients or customers. Excuse me. I'll leave it there, but I'm going to go back to more of that later.
Yeah, so I just want to tell a very brief story about how the market is not always correct and how private corporations are dog shit when it comes to actually creating things that are good for the human soul. So basically, there was this video game called Titanfall 2, and it was published by Respawn, one of the most talented developers of the past decade. And it was their passion project off of Titanfall, which was a multiplayer only game that was basically like some of the best gameplay anybody had in decades. So they went back and created a solo campaign, which to date is probably my favorite first-person shooter experience in the past decade. And what Electronic Arts did in order to fuck over Respawn, so Respawn would become their workaholic bitches, is they released Titanfall 2 with almost no marketing between Battlefield 1 and the annual release of Call of Duty. You can literally look it up. They released it in between these two sellers with almost no marketing. As a result, Titanfall 2, the best first-person shooter that's been released in the past decade, fucking tanked. Respawn owned their balls to fucking Electronic Arts, and they've been making them their bitch for the past fucking decade, making stellar fucking games, including Apex Legends and the fucking the Jedi with the fucking ginger in it. I still haven't played it yet.
Force Awakens.
Which are excellent games, but it came at the expense of the best first-person shooter series that could have been. Fuck these people. Labor,
EA
and
is cannibalistic.
And soul, and fucking capitalism, they have to be balanced.
What?
You have to balance the market in labor, in art, and soul.
Cannibalism is something we've always... Go ahead.
It's okay. It's only tangentially related, but something similar happened with Disney after the end of the Disney Renaissance. They essentially killed their 2D animation circuit. Like they purposefully released one of the best movies that they've ever released, Treasure Planet, alongside a fucking Santa Claus movie. Like one of the Santa Claus movies. They did it to purposefully kill that movie so that there wouldn't be as much demand for 2D animation. And then they started with Pixar pumping out all of these 3D animated movies, and now you have the market not being correct because people who are actually into animation are clawing for classic animation. Just another thing where the market wasn't correct.
Here's what's better.
How are these? I don't understand that the market wasn't correct, right? Like
Listen,
a company
it was
releases
more
a bad
interesting
product.
than your fucking explanation for 10 goddamn minutes about fucking market forces. Like, I get that you're
All right.
correct, but
Let me-
goddamn, that was a 3-minute
Let me
rant.
respond to something you said, Prime.
Okay, go ahead.
Because we're
You
talking
know-
about like the
he's right though. One second, because he's right though. It wasn't the market not being correct. It was them engineering the market so that it only produced one type of thing. And then the market responding with, we want more of what you got rid of. So
Well,
you're
and
actually right, Fabian.
I still blame consumers though, because that's why we have fucking Call of Duty schlock back after back after back after back.
I would disagree with that, but we'll go back.
yeah, look, we can shit on people's tastes. So I would agree. I think a lot of people have terrible taste. I, of course, am the only person who has good taste, as I'm sure every consumer thinks about everything they ever consume ever.
That's why you're wearing that fire ass FUBU jacket, right?
Thanks. I love it.
It is fire though.
Not only is it FUBU, it's platinum FUBU. I don't know.
It's
if you guys
also
knew that.
flame retardant. Yeah, because it's so
No,
fucking fire already.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go a totally different way with that.
Okay. So, Prime.
Yeah.
I'm still asserting that a company's interest is to its shareholders because, you can look at. I think when you look at a company, there's two different groups of people, right? Or they don't. In certain situations, they don't necessarily have to be different groups of people. In a workers' co-op, they happen to be the exact same group of people, right? But there's the owners and the workers, right? You have people who own the capital of that corporation and the name and the trademark and everything like that, and the stuff that actually makes up the company. And then you have the people who go and work for the company. And this doesn't just include like your average, wage workers. It also includes like the executive suite. A CEO is a worker position. If you are a CEO, you are a worker, right? You are working for the company. You are not an owner. You are not a capitalist. You are a
Unless it's
prole,
private.
right?
You're telling the CEO is a pro?
Absolutely. A chief executive officer is not, that position in of itself is not a ownership position. It is a worker position. If you do not own any of the company and you are a CEO, you are nothing but a
They
pro.
oftentimes do because they have stock.
Right. Yeah. There's a connection the same way if I go like if I
Paid
work
in
for
stock options.
Yeah, if I work for Coca-Cola and I happen to buy some Coca-Cola stock off Amazon or off Robinhood, I technically am a part. I'm a part owner there. But my position as a worker for Coca-Cola is not a ownership position. That is a worker position in the same way as CEO is a worker position. So ultimately, the company is aimed at the interests of the people who own it. First and foremost, that's like their fiduciary duty. And then there is this other interest, which potentially could be not aligned with that of the owners, which is the workers. But again, like that's not the company. Those are simply people who work for the company. The company is the owners, the shareholders, right? That's what makes up the company because they get to decide what happens with it. They vote at the shareholder meetings, right?
Wow.
Workers are not a part of like. They're not.
Yeah.
Really the
I
company.
know that. Yeah.
They are
I
simply.
agree.
They're simply.
I have with what you're saying.
They are the bitches of the company. They are not the actual company. Okay.
So Lactoid have so many things I want to respond to you with, right? Like you.
Let me do a quick
I
joke.
defend the workers.
Let me do a quick
The
joke.
CEOs of the world rejoice.
We have we'll get to your response and then Arez and I'll go later. I'm not done with
Let
it.
Rez go
really
first.
quick. It's a really quick
I
joke.
just want to.
Because the thing is, the rich want to spit on the worms. It is interest
Oh my
of
God!
the
Stop with the
shareholders
worm shit.
to
I don't give a
go
shit about
ahead
this.
It's a
and
terrible joke.
fulfill
Shut the fuck up,
their
Arthur.
destiny
Shut up,
to
shut up.
shit on the
Echo-
worker.
Echo's gonna say something smart. Go
Okay,
ahead.
listen, I just wanted to redeem myself in the eyes of Prime because I've been conservative this whole panel, and it's starting to make me feel a little bit icky. So I'll just say this. Yeah, okay. What Lactoid is saying is right. The responsibility of the corporation is to the shareholders. However, the problem is it leaves a whole lot left unsaid, which is to say, if the responsibility of the corporation is to the shareholders, then there needs to be other actors in there to represent the people. And so,
Like unions.
but
What?
here's the thing: you've got to.
Okay,
yeah,
Klaus
we had the
Schwab.
union
No,
discussion
We need
earlier, but what I'm
stakeholder
talking about is,
capitalism. Like,
right now,
Right.
if you're going to have the value of the markets is that there's competition, and if there's not enough competition in the markets, it's often because the markets have turned into oligopolies where a small number of corporations make decisions for the entire market. And that's where what Prime was talking about kicks in, because when he was talking about the collusion of everybody paying workers less than they're worth. There was this great story, The Pearl of Great Price. I think we all read it in high school, or a lot of us might have. And it's just about this guy who goes and he finds this massive pearl and he thinks he's going to make it rich, but he goes to all these different vendors who are supposed to buy the pearl from him, and they've all colluded to not offer him a lot of money for that pearl, and he ends up throwing it into the sea. And so all I'm saying is that markets work best when there's competition. You'll get a much more fair result from employers if there's enough employers out there to compete for that labor. But if they get fat and happy enough to the point where they don't need to pay you what you're worth because there's not a lot of places that you can go to, that's going to be a problem. That's number one.
No.
Is there's not enough competition in the marketplace. Secondly, you're talking about all these corporate profits that happen as a result of acting in these increasingly efficient ways. There's nothing wrong with the efficiency, but I do agree that that there's a problem with corporate profits sort of going in a different direction than wages go in. And one of the solutions to that is you just tax the fuck out of them. You increase the taxes so that you can capture some of that back. So there are a lot of solutions here, but the
Scott
solutions
loves that
aren't
one.
to
it's not a
expect
fucking
corporations.
solution.
But okay, fine. But the solutions are not. But where I do agree with you, Fabian, is one solution is not to expect corporations to act against their own best interest or to treat employees as if they're like,
So
that they're a jobs program.
here's the
That's
thing.
not
So
the part.
I
that's
want to
the solution.
use. No one said that, right? So again, you guys are putting words in my mouth that simply were never said. Okay, so what's in the best interest of a company, right? And we'll just use the video game industry because I think we can work with that a little bit better, right? What's in the best interest of? Sorry, because we have to distinguish this because
It's actually a horrible
lactoid.
example because it's volatile as fuck. But continue.
Shut up. But lactoid, we have to distinguish it because you keep. When I mean company, I mean the organization of people. All right, like the organization of people that are coming together to provide a product or a service, and the best way to provide that product or service. That is different from the people who own who have like control of the company through ownership stakes, right? Like that's a different. You're just talking about like the legal organization, the legal entity that is the company, and you're saying that the stakeholders are that company. And
Well, I
like,
am in a way.
yeah, and that's
what
what I'm talking
I'm
about.
talking about like the legal organization of things, but also there's like a deeper point, which is like the ownership structure matters when we're talking about what the company is and who it's meant to serve. I own my house, right? When guests come into my house, they don't get a union. They don't get to like tell me what to do in my house just because they happen to be guests in my house because I'm letting them be here and enjoy it. doesn't mean they have any rights whatsoever. In the
Right,
same way,
that's
when
the
you're
same
when you're a
thing.
worker, like a CEO who goes to work for a company, you have no rights there, right? They can tell you to go if they want, and they can tell you to stay if they want, and you can
Yeah.
choose to leave or you can choose to stay.
Yeah, that's
Like you,
nice.
if you're a worker, you are a guest. A company is
Yeah, that's
merely
cute.
all a company is a legal instrument in
Sure.
order to protect shareholders from liability. That's
Whatever.
all it ever
Yeah.
will be.
Yeah.
And that's why when a
nice.
poor
And
comes
that's
to
no, shut
Lactoid's
up,
house,
shut up, shut up. I don't care. Shut up. I don't care. All right.
I turn them away.
So
you throw them into the blizzard.
no. He gives them a warning shot with a gun, but then there's only one warning shot. The rest will be lethal. So so this is a divide that if we can't necessarily bridge, then it's going to be a problem for the rest of this conversation. Because that's not what I'm referring to. Like what I'm referring to is a company that has an organization that has the ability to survive long term by providing the best products and services for its customers, right? The very basics of that company.
That's
I'm
a
saying
strategy.
and it's not the only strategy. That's
It
true.
doesn't
There are
make the
other
company.
strategies. There are other strategies in which you don't do that, but you get to skate along because of our corporatist types of capitalism that we have. Yes, it is the case. You're right. You don't necessarily have to provide the best product. That's true. But I think so.
Look
I
at
think
Blizzard.
that we should align
Right.
our incentives. The best way to have an economy is to align our incentives so that it works best for the customers, it works best for the workers, and right with a handy profit for the investors. Right, not all the profits, not all the money, but a handy profit for investors. That's the way we should organize these things. So, in terms of the video game companies, right? What's the best interest for that? The best interest is to retain talent, right? You are making a complex product or service, making a complex product, and you need great talent to do that. So, retaining that talent, not necessarily trying to discipline that talent and stress out all the workers to think, oh, maybe I'll be the next one to leave, or cutting
This is
back so
crazy.
much that they are overburdened, so they can't provide the level of services necessary. It is to follow product lines that have long-term potential and are the best value for your customers to keep them happy, rather than short-term profit grabs like those live services game that end up crashing and burning any which way, right? But initially, at least, there's a profit boom when people are buying up your horse armor, whatever the fuck, right?
Prime.
Like, these are things that are in the best interest of the company and of customers and the investors for a tidy profit, not all of the profits.
If it's in the
Okay,
best,
so let
if
me
it's-
let me explain something here,
No,
because
no. Shut up for a second.
One thing.
Lactoid, I want to hear what Lactoid has to say. Then Scott, go ahead. You can give me another fucking lecture that literally no one gives a shit about. And
Jesus.
counterpoints.
I know.
Shut
Yeah.
up. Counterpoints. I don't have time for you right now. Sorry, not counterpoints. Sorry. Scott.
How do you leave?
I was gonna say counterpoints. I was gonna say your name next. I'm sorry.
Let me
I
know
wanna
when
hear
it's my
more from
turn.
you. I want to. Oh, okay. Then it'll be
I got
Lactoid,
another
then
joke.
counterpoints. Shut up. Lactoid, then counterpoints, then Scott. Okay, Lactoid.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, like there is an argument that
Dude, he's so
long-term
terrified
thinking
of
is
like
beneficial for the
learning
shareholders
anything.
for a number of reasons.
It's okay. I
number of
wrote
reasons.
shit down. so
There's
I can
also
go
examples where it's
again.
not.
That's the
So
problem.
one example of where long-term thinking is actually stupid when we're talking about shareholder value would be a company like Altria, right? A company that owns Philip Morris. When you are selling cigarettes and your market share is declining year after year, and there's one way where you're faced with a product that eventually is going to go extinct, to make money, and that one way is to, well, I have an obligation to my shareholders. Let's make them as much money as we can before the time is up, right? That's perfectly rational thinking that makes sense for a company. Because again, like you have a duty to the people who invested all that time and money into your company. They expect to receive some kind of output, and you agree to give them the output. That's contractual. What I don't think is that a company or a worker or anybody whatsoever has some kind of obligation to make you a good video game. There's no requirement. A company exists to make money. And if a company can make money by putting out good products that people want to buy in a market, that's good because it's all consensual. But there's no obligation that a company has to ignore the person that actually owns them in order to focus on the potential like desires of somebody who has no connection with that company. In the same way, I don't have to paint my walls different in my house because some guest thinks it's ugly. Okay, my walls are a perfect gray, and they will not change regardless if somebody wants some burgundy, even if they come over a lot. Even if they're over every day, they're like, "Oh, I'm a loyal guest of your house." Fuck you, no, it's my house.
Literally,
My
no
walls.
one cares about what's happening in your house. Not even women. That's why I don't come over. All right, so
Aw.
we're moving on. But no, Phil, Lactoid, I'll have to deal with you later. Lactoid, I'll have to deal with you later, friend. But I want to get counterpoints in, and then
At least
Scott.
when he has
And
them over, it's
shut the fuck up,
consensual,
Rez.
though.
Yes!
Johnny.
Whoa,
Johnny
thank
wants to
you,
jump in as
Rez.
well.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead, counterpoints.
Okay, so no, one of the things is like that I'm kind of hearing is the base level of what identifies a company from like a capitalist perspective is, you know, basically it returns value to shareholders and it does its best to make money and it blah blah fucking blah. Okay, I get that. That's like the bare minimum of an institution. And if you want to fall back on like
He really doesn't.
legalistic or like economic bullshit, sure, whatever. What we're talking about is like should. And so when we're talking about should, there's all sorts of reasons why people balance interest between different things. And when we're talking about like, this goes all the way back to like the founding of initial corporations. So when we're talking about like the East India Trading Company, when they first started, like they spread like the word of Christ along with like doing different business shit. That wasn't part of like, you know, their need to return value to their fucking stakeholders or some shit. That was like a higher moral calling that they individually decided that they had. So what I'm really saying is I feel like you guys have this like very easy thing to defend, which is we only have to do these two things to be considered a company. Whereas what we're talking about is like, what should people do in order to become good forces within the market on a variety of levels, not just economics?
Thank you for
Okay.
that counterpoint. So you put in a better way
All right.
than I did. Thanks so much. Let's go to Scott, Johnny, then Lactoid to say something else terrible. Scott.
So first what we'll do is where, you know, I'm right, but nobody cares because it's not enough dick jokes, right? Which is the problem here, is that, you know, the capitalists invest capital because we have a universal time preference. We want a thing now just more than we want the exact same thing at a later date, right? So the capitalist is the one putting up the capital to make this occur. The employee is the one that provides labor, but any other employee could just as easily provide that labor. Labor is not a concrete thing. Nobody owns labor. That's just old world economic stupidity, right? You can't own labor because you can't fucking touch it, right? Now, the thing here is that ESOP models and co-ops don't fucking work. And then the Marxian cope is that, oh, well, see, it's our system is set up for short-term investment, and that's why. No, they're not scalable. ESOPs and co-ops don't fucking work. So it is the capitalist that is rewarded for putting in capital, right? Based off of the proper allocation of resources. It is his or her ability to predict future outcomes and invest those for the future that allows him to get profit. We don't have an evenly rotating economy, right? So this idea that like, well, the company or the people that work in the company, they're so important. Well, they're fucking inferior at being able to properly allocate resources. That's why they're not fucking scalable.
I think
They suck at it. It's an economic reality.
Oh my god!
Now, let's talk about.
Actually, I want to talk to Fabian about something.
You goddamn degenerate! Holy
no, this is such
shit.
a
There's
cope
people who
fucking
make so many
argument.
bad bits. No, you make
This is
there's
such
so
a
many people who
cope
make
fucking
bad bets on the
argument.
economy. Shut the
This
fuck
is a
up.
cope fucking.
No,
So
you
you
got to
talk about
shut up.
should. You got should. I didn't talk about 30 goddamn minutes. I just brought it
Yeah,
so
you
that people would have a
broke
base
it up. You
understanding.
broke it up into 15 2-minute
So the
segments.
second,
We got it.
So the
So
second,
here's the thing.
the
It is
second,
that it
the
is
second,
absolutely
the second.
right.
Oh my gosh!
But
Shut up!
you're assuming everybody is
everyone
acting.
quiet. Everyone quiet. Everyone quiet. Sorry, Scott. I didn't realize that you weren't done with your points. I want to make sure you have
The second one is this idea that that we should value the employees, that it is morally good to have a better long-term focus of the economy, right? Well, the only way to ensure that is free market capitalism without regulations and without massive fucking unions trying to gather the power of the state to stop the ability of corporations to enact regulations and taxes that actually reduce the value of companies, reduce the speed of creative destruction, reduce the speed of innovation that makes labor more valuable, that makes wages increase. Anybody that is making that argument is just coping because they don't understand econ. And when you try and teach them fucking econ, they go, oh, boring econ. I want to talk about my wonderful heart and how I care about the employees, except you keep advocating for policies that fuck them over.
Come on, fucking ANCAP.
Well, I'm the only one that understands what the fuck we're talking about.
It's not that. It's all right. So it's two things. It's not that you're the only one that understands it. It's one that you're assuming that everybody is operating at the same level of like trying to be fully cohesive with their arguments and everything. As Lactoid,
why would you not be cohesive with your fucking arguments?
Well, we're all trying to be cohesive.
Lactoid, dog fucking panel, cohesive with his arguments, still came off as schizoid. The other part is that
trash and argue.
We're all trying to be cohesive with our arguments. So
yeah, like, and that's why it's just like, yeah, I get it. Like, this is why, because I'm sorry, I don't actually think, I think that there is like a much more human element that you're abstracting from this, which is that a lot of these people probably just want to make the workers suffer. They want to bring them down. They want to destroy their souls.
They want to
right?
spit in their mouth.
There is literally there's a whole thing about people wanting to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
If there are companies that legitimately want to hurt and harm their employees and pay them the bare minimum, right? So long as they don't actually aggress upon them, which, you know, Blizzard, Activision, we can make an argument that they certainly aggress upon people, right? But assuming that they don't, that is okay, then when you open it up to the market, do you know what happens? The companies fail.
Then why is it like, I mean, like,
it is the best companies that rise to the top in that regard.
Except it's it's not definitely not the case. But
you guys,
but you have no evidence for it.
Goodbye, you guys. Thank you so much. Hey, Fabian, I want to do one thing. I would love to talk to Fabian a little bit more, like somewhere on a stream or something. Just, I find a lot of these arguments to be, for sure. I find a lot of these arguments to be something that require a little bit more like one-on-one attention. So,
he'll still bless you. It won't make a fucking difference. Okay, bye. So let's go.
Hey, I was super nice to Stefan Kinsella.
He really unleashes the misogyny one-on-one.
All right, let's let Aiko go, and then we'll go to counterpoints. And I really want to address a lot of. I haven't forgotten about you, Lactoid. You have more terrible things to say.
I have two quick things to say, though.
Okay, two quick things. You know what? You go, Lactoid, because I believe in your awfulness.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is that this idea of thinking that companies like are more than that. Honestly, I'm starting to think that it's just you guys buying into their propaganda, right? These companies hire like public relations managers to craft these quote unquote mission statements and these like very deep quote unquote principles these companies hold. These are legal instruments to make money. Like if you approach these companies with like some honesty and some brevity, like don't fall for their shit. Like when I go to a company and I see like some mission statement that says, we really care about you. I know what they're after. They're after my money. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, I'm not going to fucking pretend like this is like some fucking charity. It's not a charity. It's a company. The second point I want to make, Rez, I was the only fucking one to write on that panel. And the fucking level of backlash I'm getting.
Wait, wasn't it that like you were like, you should both be able to eat and fuck dogs?
Shut. We're not going to go down that route. Okay. Lactoid, you're absolutely wrong. I'll deal with you later. Aiko first, counterpoint next, and then I'm going to go, and I'm going to, once again, shit on Scott and Lactoid. It'll be a great time.
Listen, I just wanted to point out that, I talked about like the taxation stuff, but also one of the solutions has got to be, and we're not seeing this from either party and haven't for a long, long time, is breaking up the biggest companies, the ones that are making it so that markets really aren't free.
Commies.
Like oligopolies are one of the reasons why markets aren't free and why capital doesn't. We're not getting the right amount of distribution of power between labor and capital is because there's not enough places for these people to go in competition where where you're guaranteed not to get collusion from the very people at the top of the industry. That's
is
one of the
bullshit.
things that needs to change. That's one of the things.
Name one successful breakup. Name one.
It was
Wait,
probably from the
Standard
1920s.
Oh, yeah. I would say the Hunt
Standard
Brothers,
Oil.
the cornering the silver market in the late 70s. That would be
Fuck! That's
one
the
of
only
my
good one.
go-tos.
Everyone always says Standard Oil. Oh, I mean, the
Okay.
problem is Congress was
What about-
voting on that one as well, but that's a really long talk.
What about Bell
counterpoints.
Telephone? Right? Didn't they get broken up through the same thing?
Yeah, that
Well,
was
the problem is that the
just
government
a bunch of
created that
smaller
monopoly.
monopolies.
The government
Yeah.
created that monopoly. They monopolized it during the war, and then
Also, that was
Oh,
a
they turned it into a
national-
commodity. They turned it into a commodity.
That
The
was
government-
a
the government
national,
monopolized
that was a national
Yeah,
monopoly
commodity.
that turned into regional monopolies. It didn't really. It really didn't do anything.
Yeah, it has
Unfortunately, the
decayed
the
a
90s is
lot
what-
lately too. So
Let's go to counterpoints.
No, this is like this is horseshit, and the reason why it's horseshit is because I've worked for institutions that didn't have that bullshit culture that you were talking about, and I've worked for institutions that did have the bullshit culture that you're talking about, and then even in the ones that basically like they say nice things.
Are you talking
order to-
lactoid?
Yeah, I'm talking lactoid. The reason why that culture shit is necessary is because the employees are able to use that as leverage against their more fucking draconian, vampiric fucking bosses in order to do better shit for fucking human beings. And on top of that, they're able to do that because they can fall back on company culture and handbooks and all that kind of bullshit. So you can pretend like it's all fucking arbitrary, but when you're talking about like, I work in the insurance industry, when you're talking about the insurance industry, or when you're talking about like sales and all that kind of shit, that absolutely affects people's bottom lines and pockets and the culture that they work in and whether or not services are rendered. If it's this
That's why they
rawly
care.
draconian, no, if it's this rawly draconian fucking like we'll deliver the least amount of services possible for the most amount of fucking dollar, those companies are the most dog shit to fucking work for, and they're the most dog shit to be customers of, and they're the most fucking dog shit to interact with when you're trying to get something done. And it's because they have no spine to fall back on.
But you just proved our point.
Yes,
You literally
yes, the
just
whole-
proved our point.
No,
Their
no.
value
They're the
goes down
successful.
because they treat their employees like shit.
Yes.
The market
No,
can
they're
determine
the
this.
most successful.
the value of
the-
suffering goes
the
up.
whole-
No,
the
they're
whole
not.
Yes, they are.
Workplace culture is a corporate tool for worker retention. Okay, these things that you're thinking are like they're just doing because they're nice. Everything they do is to make money. That's the point. Don't like. This is why when you engage with these corporations, just accept that and don't pretend like they have your
Get
best interest in
Activision
mind.
Blizzard as a
necessarily.
thing. Get Comcast as a thing. These
Yeah, let's talk about
these-
insurance
these-
industry.
Yeah. My turn now. So yeah, Activision Blizzard is a thing. Comcast is a thing. Where workers can typically say the worst places to work at, and the customers say they're the worst to work with. But
Still buy
they
the
still
fucking games.
they still are at the top of the heap. So it's not that like that makes. They're at the top of the heap. Activision is, as far as I know, the most profitable game company.
So they can still exist.
Top.
Let's look at
and
let's
so
look at
they
the
can-
insurance industry.
I
thought you were
didn't think
done. I thought you were done. My bad.
No. Okay. Fair enough. No, I'm not falling for like the fucking corporate propaganda. Like I said
But it matters.
previously, like a half hour ago, there's a divide here that we it seems like we just can't bridge, and because we can't do that, we end up talking about two different things, right? Scott was was closer when he was talking about restructuring the economy. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to restructure the economy. I want to align the incentives of these groups, of customers, of labor, of capital. I want to align the incentives here because I think that's how we would create a society that has better results overall, right? It has a healthier society. It has a more productive society, and it has more responsive corporations, like responsive to their customers, right? Like I think everything works out better
This is
if we
fascism.
restructure it. As you, yes, fascism, sure, whatever.
Nice.
But Lactoid,
Literally.
what was I gonna say? As things stand now, right? You're correct in that. Yeah, the company, the legal organization, has to be aligned with its shareholders, and it takes actions like to benefit them. I'm saying that is a destructive relationship, and that we can design a better one.
No.
One, yeah.
So
Yeah,
I just
go
want to say, so I don't think that it's always good to have everybody's interests aligned, right? There can be benefits, but in the same way that, like, you know, my client's interests are not going to line up with like the other council's client's interests, because there's like fundamental opposing interests that we have here. There's always going to be like a fundamental like opposing interest to some extent between a producer and a consumer, because the consumer wants to give the least for the good and have the highest quality good, and the producer wants to
That's
like
true.
put the least effort into producing it and
Yeah.
give it at the most price possible. I have like in my like property, like my house, I have like an interest in like maintaining it, and somebody else might have an interest in coming in and trashing it, right? There's explicit, and I think it's better to just acknowledge when we have like competing interests, and to like work with that, and to try to work with that in a healthy way, other than trying to make like everybody's interest.
I gotta point out why this is bullshit.
It's unrealistic, like kumbaya shit. It doesn't work.
No, it's not unrealistic kumbaya shit. There's a fucking company, I love them to death. Their name is fucking Paul Davis Restoration. What they do is they fucking get a job, they add 20%, they do exactly what the fuck they're gonna say, and then they fucking walk home and they take their profit. And they're not the most successful in the industry, as in they have like the largest market share, but they're the most successful in being able to look themselves in the fucking mirror every single goddamn night, because all they do is they fucking add 20% so they can keep their doors open, and they do a great fucking job.
There might be some small business.
No, it's not. It's a nationwide fucking chain. It's just competing with fucking shitbags all the goddamn time.
Then there is some financial interest like underlying. If they are like a large publicly traded company, what they're doing, there is an underlying financial interest in them doing it.
Of course there is, but do you understand what I'm saying, where you don't have to be solely focused on the one thing that you said, which is maximizing profit for the least amount of fucking effort possible?
But that's what they're doing.
Fucking getting the cheapest price. No, they're not. That's
when
not
there's
how
a
they run
financial
their
interest in
fucking
doing
business.
it, that's what they're trying to do.
No, they're not. That's what I'm telling you. The
Counterpoints.
culture is completely fucking different.
It's a worker
Counterpoints.
retention strategy.
You brought up
Listen.
the insurance industry, right? And so like
Yeah.
let's talk about different cultures within like the car insurance industry and private insurance industry, right? Geico, for example, is known for being like they will time you like while you're like how long it takes you to type and to use their systems. They're known for being incredibly strict, right? And yet they're super profitable. It's a terrible place to work. So why do people work at Geico, and why is Geico profitable? Well, Geico's profitable for two reasons. Number one of the things they do is they train their employees incredibly well. Geico is known as the gold standard, that if you used to work at Geico, you know what the fuck you're doing. And so many times people that can't hack that culture will do a couple years in Geico, and then they'll go to another company like Nationwide or something, right? And just having Geico on their resume makes it easier for them to, let's say, get into litigation or to get into bodily harm, as an adjuster moving up the ladder, right? The other reason is that Geico has like development programs that they have fine-tuned. They go and find soldiers with college degrees and certain things, and they shoot them higher up in their company structure, and they avoid like the ladder climbing from the bottom up, because they find talent and put them where they're best used, right? All of these are good things for Geico, but you're like, well, damn, that culture sucks. Well, that culture also has another drawback for Geico, which is that their underwriting sucks. Their underwriters are not very creative because they have very little creative freedom, and they suck at writing policies. So much so that a lot of times Geico literally cannot grab certain portions of the market, which is excess and surplus market in the industry. Like that is literally left up to companies like James River, right? Because they just don't have the creativity at that company to be able to do that. It's perfectly reasonable for an employee to go work at the soul-crushing Geico for 2 years if they value that training and that addition to their resume. And it's also perfectly acceptable for excess and surplus private insurers that are a little bit more open, that maybe aren't the greatest with their adjusters, but are able to make money in underwriting policies that other people wouldn't even touch. And for both of these to compete within the same market, both companies are trying to maximize their profit. That is the very reason that they do everything that they do, but they have different company cultures, and it benefits them in different ways.
Okay, so I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think what Prime and I have been saying for the past fucking 20 minutes is that the world is a slightly worse place because of the business model that these people adopt, and not everybody has to be that way. Maybe Prime wants to legislate that level of morality. I don't necessarily want to, but what I would like is whenever we have these conversations about like profit and market incentives and all that kind of stuff, basically what I hear from the people who use libertarian or anarcho-capitalist or capitalist or right wing, when I hear them fucking talk about this shit, they act like in order to have a successful business, every business has to follow Geico's model, and it's just not true. There's plenty of successful businesses,
and we have.
Okay, well, and maybe you don't. Maybe I'm fucking strawmanning you, but at the same time, when I hear things like you have to fucking maximize profit in order to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Like, I already know that shit's not fucking true because there's so many businesses that I work with routinely that have completely different cultures. And you can say it's bullshit because then they use that in marketing materials in order to recruit their fucking people. But I am saying that employees are happier, customers are happier, the premiums are a little bit higher, which is true, but then I fucking feel bad for the motherfuckers who have to go to Geico, who have to go to Direct General, who have to go to all these fucking places, because basically what happens is, yeah, you get a cheap price up front, and then they fuck you on the back door as hard as they fucking can, and that's the way you have to live, and that's the way you have to expect it to be.
But we don't expect that. Like, look at Costco as a model, right? Costco employees love working at Costco, right? They absolutely love that model, right? They've found an innovative way, right, which is palletizing.
They have
everything
like living
and
wages
selling
and fucking benefits and shit.
Living wage is a silly word that I'm just going to dismiss, but they have much higher wages than the market rate for grocery store employees, to the point where most people that work at Costco like will go into Costco thinking I'm just going to do this while I'm in college, and then they end up working for Costco their entire fucking life because it's just a great place to work, right? But that we're not saying that in order to be profitable, you have to micromanage everything. What we're saying is that is one strategy. But what we're also saying is that there is a cost to the business model when you treat your employees like shit. But what matters is the profit to the shareholders. There are multiple pathways in which you can get that way, and it's up to you, the people, who have a choice in where you work, and the culture and the society and mutual aid and praxis and the church and whatever community you have to change the culture of what you value. Because the employee is in a voluntary relationship with the capitalist that hires them. And we can even look at this new generation of workers, right? And recognize that the boomers were like, work at a company for 30 years because it's important to be loyal to the company. And millennials and especially Gen Xers are like, if I get another better opportunity, I'm fucking gone, bitch. Right? Like
that's like bad
the seller
shit.
It's not bad. You're just having nostalgia for like a
people
better time.
leaving every 4 years and not having retirement, medical, dental, or anything like that, and them constantly scrabbling for cash until they end up having to work out at Walmart anyways.
You're spinning a narrative
so hard.
You're spinning a narrative as opposed to recognizing that culture changes decisions that people make as voluntary workers.
Yeah, I hate everything about the world you want to build, but it's okay.
Yeah. So, like Lactwood was, or
just take that dub and run.
I don't know who was like building that straw man, saying that we should. That I would want a company to keep workers on for charity. But no one's saying that. There are reasons why.
I officially met Jake from State Farm. I'm here for you, boys.
Employees, like it makes sense. That absolutely is a thing that happens. But it's just a matter of values. We're just at a value divide. If you think that like this world that we currently live in isn't one of the darker timelines, well then everything works here. Then this is fine. In fact, we can make it better in your opinion by loosening regulations and deregulate to do more of that, and things will be even better. So it's just I'm focused.
How dare you accuse me of having values that think that like corporations fucking over people is a positive thing? Like you're putting that on me. Don't put that on me. Like I think what is happening is corporations
Yeah.
are capturing the state so that they can abuse regulations in the government to fuck over workers more. And I want freedom and happy and healthy workers in a community of people that
Okay.
voluntarily have better options and better lives.
Sure, that's fair. That's fair. Like you're just completely misguided in how like the
Well,
market
one of
works
us
and,
understands economics and the other one
yeah,
copes.
And I understand.
Says I'm boring.
You're completely misguided. So that's okay. So I'll talk to Lactoid. But
Well, okay, Prime. I was gonna ask, are we
Because
hitting
Lactoid's
time?
only
How much
partially
longer are we running?
misguided.
yeah, we're about to hit bonus time where we just like argue into the night, honestly. But we can. How about this? Like if Lactoid or Scott want to come on to the open panel, then we can do more there, right? Like I'd love to engage more with either of you. So yeah, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll have gone on.
As
for,
I
like,
mentioned, many people don't realize that, right? Like I have an autistic son and 2 toddlers that come over every other weekend. So like my circadian rhythms and like brain is like fucked on half of these Mondays that I come. And this would be one of those Mondays. So a lot of times I don't come, not because like I don't want to do it. It's because like after 4.5 hours of doing this, I'm fucking over. So I just want to let you know that I'm not like, fuck Prime. I only come to the closed panels, right? Like it's like my brain is gone.
No, that's fair enough.
I'm glad to help you with that.
Yeah. No, all right. Well, we'll move on.
I don't want you to treat my son like a disgusting worm.
What do you mean? I'm not trying to treat your son like a worm. He's not 14. He's not good for the minds yet.
Oh boy. Let's.
Okay, like what, dude? Come on.
Audience members, we are going to go on to our open walk on panel. The content does not end. This panel ends, but we have more content for you. We have a open walk on panel where you, yes, who's sitting at home, may participate. So stick around for that. We'd love to have you. If you've been enjoying this content so far, hit that follow button. In case you're going to head out, right? Just hit that follow button and make sure that you subscribe to the channel. This is how we keep this alive. This is how I keep this up and running. I literally cannot do it without you. Thank you for the people who helped out earlier in the night, but we could always use more help. Sub to the channel, give bits or give subs, use your Amazon Prime subscribe gaming on this community, so that I can keep it around for another week. Okay, excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm going to give an outro to all these great individuals, but we will have more content after this, so stick around for that. All right, so we'll start with our friend Lactoid. Lactoid, I'm going to ask you, it's going to sound like it's not a serious question, but I swear to God this is. Has that always been your hair color?
I've never dyed my hair, but it's definitely been turning more white over the past couple of years, which is unfortunate.
In my mind, like Lactoid, we're not new to each other.
Yo, this is racist.
But in my mind, I have always seen you as blonde. I'm sorry.
When you think of him late at night, is it yo-da-do-da-do-da-do? I think that communism is a bad. Is that what you're doing? Just a little blonde, like just a tall blonde guy walking around the house? Communism is a bad.
I'd be
Because
Lactoid
he's
is
just
so incredibly white. Not just like physically, but also like in terms of his philosophy, his just way of being, like everything about it. His soul is incredibly white. I can see that, yeah.
Scandinavian, I relate him with the Ubermensch.
He's just working on his Brett Kavanaugh cosplay for Halloween.
I swear to God, like, I looked at you today. I just looked at you, on the screen. I'm like, shit, did he dye his hair? Like, I'm so sorry, Fred.
I feel like you made a racial assumption about me.
I did.
I'm gonna go ahead and just try to move on past it. I also want to point out that some of our strongest allies in the liberty movement are persons of color, and we're proud of that. We're proud of that diversity. Shout out to
Young Ripa rated me tonight on
J-Moss,
Twitch.
Auntie,
Check out Ripa59.
You're not muted. But, go ahead.
Oh, my bad.
So,
and don't forget that even his name is a reference to milk.
It's his outro. Let him outro.
Yeah,
let him
please,
outro, please.
Okay. So thank you for having me on. It was great to talk with you all. It was fun to have some disagreement as usual. If you would like to listen to more of me and my diverse opinions, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. And I host the anti-communism show that's still there, okay? But the name's a little bit different now. So,
yeah. Thank you so much. Let's go to our friend Scott. Scott, as always, I do appreciate you. To the new person who's here, you may think otherwise, but I'm always happy that you're around and you give your very unique perspective forcefully every single time you defend what you believe in. So shout out to you.
Yeah, I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty. We're a duo stream. You can find us Fabian Liberty pretty much everywhere. On Twitter, it's Liberty_Fabian, but if you just search Fabian Liberty, you'll find us. And if you're one of the few people, right, that actually likes, in-depth ideas and like actually likes being right and understanding philosophy and understanding principles and understanding economics, then you should definitely check out the YouTube, right? We recently did an interview with Stefan Kinsella, where we talked about the foundations for property rights and historical link of property and libertarian theory and philosophy. I've spoken to Yaron Brook on objectivism. We've had a lot of those good conversations. If you just want dick jokes, then on off days on Twitch, there's plenty of dick jokes. For 35,000 channel points, I will put on gray sweatpants for you.
What? Do we do dick jokes a lot on this? Is that we referring to us? We don't do a lot of dick jokes. I don't think so.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're a dick and a joke. I just kind of put the two together.
There we go. Thank you so much. I love the woman.
I set it up and I was like, please say something.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I'm glad. Like, I love the warm and fuzzy feelings this man always leaves me with. Okay. I feel loved every time. Let's go to Rezi. Rez. Yeah. Well, you were here. So
yeah, I mean, I was here. I got in like what I wanted to say. I want to close with I won the second half of this debate because nobody engaged with me properly. The Business Law of 1933 goes ahead and asserts that corporations don't actually give a fuck, and that they did that literally so they could subjugate the worker. If we're going to talk about subjugating the worker, we're going to talk about the commodity value of suffering, especially as we try to go ahead and raise our great Lord Moloch. Then guess what? You can come talk to me, twitch.tv/Reverie. I make memes, sometimes have like sort of serious conversations, but I like making jokes and trying to make it understandable for other people. We have fun. That's what I do.
Thank you, and I do appreciate it.
Hold on. He said his great Lord Moloch. Now I know who made the Ruth Bader Ginsburg statue.
Yes, it was me the whole time. You have no idea what it truly means.
We're gonna go to
your art subjectivist arguments against Prime 2.5 hours ago were totally wrong. He was right. It was about the merging of humanity with plant forms and ultimately bringing forth that television show that was based off a video game with fungus people and shit. Prime is trying to make us all fungus people.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. All right, Aiko.
Communism was actually created by funguses. Lenin was
let's go,
Shut
bro.
up.
I'm a fun guy.
Shut up, all of you. Aiko, again, I always feel like I need to apologize to him for like everything that happens here. Thanks for putting up with us, unless.
I'm Aiko Rich. You can find me on Twitter at that same handle, but also I help run a website called worldswithoutend.com, and Doobie is actually helping us out by hosting our first Discord event. We just started a Discord, and I guess I'll throw all that into chat right now. And our first Discord event is going to be about sci-fi books that were been made into films. So you can find
thank you so much. Please, everyone, check it out. I've seen that website that he's talking about, and it's actually really cool. It's a really cool service. So it's a fun place, especially like sci-fi. Go check it out. Like
there's a lot of political sci-fi on there too.
Yeah.
But do androids dream of electric sheep?
That's the question.
And is a future with cyborg Futanari better than the future we currently have?
Okay, counterpoints. Last but not least, we have last but best, honestly. We have my man Counterpoints. Look, Counterpoints, I've missed you so freaking much. Like just one of the best people to come into my community. I like, despite whether we disagreed or agreed, I always felt love from. I don't always feel love from Scott, but like I always felt love from you, friend. And you've always been a pleasure. So I'm glad that maybe you can be around just a little bit more often, because you're great. I love you.
No, it was great to feel like we were back in the olden times. The only problem is I'm in the wage cage until 8:30. But I would say, yeah, let's just plan on doing the last week of every month. I'll be here, and then if my flexibility gets a little bit better, I'll let you know. I fucking love panels. I love yelling at people. Scott, obviously, like I don't know if you feel this, but it's like the love hatred. So I love to
It's like
hate
makeup
you.
sex.
Right. Yeah, it's like having like a really toxic girlfriend who's like hot as fuck, but like the relationship is terrible, like, you know, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about you, where I love to hate you. I had this guy who, if you'll indulge me a quick story, I went to boot camp with this guy, and then I moved on to the combat training, and we fucking hated each other in boot camp. But by the time we got to combat training, we were the only faces that we recognized. So it was like a fraternal hatred love. So it was very weird, very familial. So I feel like we're building that relationship, but brick by brick between you and me. So that being said, I do Warhammer 40K reviews largely. I do media breakdowns. So if you're into really violent, very aggressive, grim, dark science fiction, check out my main channel. You can just type in Counterpoints Common Spelling. Counterpoints 30K is my main channel. Counterpoints Coliseum is my debate channel. I'll be uploading this VOD there. And then also on Friday nights, every other week, I'm trying to do something called the Heated Hippie. Hopefully, eventually, the spiritual successor to the Hippie Dippy, trying to revivify the panel scene, make it a little bit more, free flowing, and get those relationships going again. I think everybody kind of burnt out and started hating each other too much in order to build, panels as frequently as we want to. So if we can get, basically Reverie and Heated Hippie in rotation, I'm going to be a very happy camper. So again, Prime, thank you for having me. The feeling is mutual. I sincerely appreciate you guys and your communities. And y'all have a beautiful night.
We should. Okay, so if that's the problem, if it was the relationships, then I think this is a perfect example of how we can make it work, right? Like that, despite the fact that we have. So
you have a schizophrenic, an ANCAP, a Canadian, an old man, and then a guy who commodifies suffering, thus proving all my arguments.
Indeed, like that. Despite the fact that it seems that we're so far apart ideologically, like I keep calling these people back. I force us all to share the same space constantly, right? And slowly we start building these relationships, right? Like I don't think these jokes and like these barbs that like we toss at each other would have felt so good the first time around, like the first one or two times you guys appeared. But we've kept at it, and I don't know, I think it's great. So
yeah, you making me interact with Lactoid has made me finally appreciate white people.
I'm gonna leave it alone. All right. Thank you all white men.
Good one.
They happen to be great men. For being here. We are going to go to an open walk-on panel. Anyone here can join us. Hopefully Lactoid, so I can yell on some more. But if not, that's okay. Thanks for your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion for my community. I know they appreciate you so much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.
Appreciate you guys.
That was fun.
Hey, Connor, before you go.
Yeah.
You promised me last time we were on a panel that you would send me the 2 videos that I should watch to catch up on 40K. Because and I don't know like fucking which ones they are, and I don't want to waste my time. No offense, going through shit that's like 30 fucking minute conversations about like necrodermis or some shit. Like if you keep like a timeline.
Son of a bitch. So hold on. So
or like there was people were talking about the skin they have that's regenerative, and I was like, what the fuck have I stepped into? I want a brief overlay.
Well, okay.
Send them to me.
Yeah, I'll DM them.
Just don't even, no context. Just send the videos. I'll watch them.
Okay.
All right.
Lactoid, the rebrand is super
you're
good.
Muted on Discord if you're talking to us.
You just watched a clip from our Twitch channel, Fabian Liberty. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe here on YouTube, or go ahead and give us a follow on twitch.tv/Fabian Liberty.